Greetings from Tokyo, my dear friends. This is Daisuke, and I very much hope that this video finds you well and in very good spirits wherever you are in the world. And today, if you don't mind, I would like to continue on with the 31 days of cop films and gangster films from 1970 to the present. So I am speaking one cop film a day and one gangster film a day for the next 31 days. So that's 2 videos a day, at least by my count. I already spoke earlier in the day about a day 1 cop film, and so I'd like to speak now day 1 gangster film. Now, as I mentioned earlier, the gangster film is another, say, category or genre of cinema that I think can be, as we know, further subdivided into subcategories, and that process of subdivision and subcategories, subgenre, subgenre, etc., can go on for quite a way, indeed, which is one of the great things about this type of, I think, cinema exploration. And so that my point is that I think the wealth of option as to what to choose in terms of the gangster film from this period of time, I think is quite infinite, and so there's so many to choose from. But I thought, what would be a great place to go than a film that has like legendary performances, among which is one of the most legendary icons of American cinema or cinema writ large. And here he is in a very surprising role with a film that is deep-rooted in a sense of drama, of suspense, of the type of heist film, also the inner workings of say gangster organized crime, bosses making orders to those say foot soldier level criminals that are trying to carry out orders, hits, certain crimes to take place, and the like. And here we have a film that, I'll mention it momentarily, that is focusing in on what could be said to be maybe the lower rungs of that particular hierarchy of organized crime. But even so, or despite that, or perhaps because of that, we have a really enriching drama that is so poignant, so contemplative, and so meaningful, while also being a film that is charged with those compelling aspects of the genre involving crime and heists, and also loyalty and betrayal. And that form of betrayal comes in some surprising forms indeed. But before I get any further, let me now express that film. And again, for those who have not seen this film, don't worry, I will avoid speaking about specifics of the plot. So if you haven't seen this film, I will avoid the spoilers and to avoid and to preserve the that feeling of watching this film for the first time, because it really should be preserved, because it is a very special film in that way. This is a film from 1973, and it is from the director Peter Yates, and it is from the writer Paul Monash, based upon the novel by George V. Higgins. And in its incredible cast, we have, for example, Alex Rocco and Richard Jordan and Peter Boyle, and it stars the great Robert Mitchum. And so, for those of you who might notice, have you guessed it? The film that I'm going to be speaking about today is this: The Friends of Eddie Coyle. The Friends of Eddie Coyle is one of those special films. It can be said to be, in many ways, it's a perfect film. I think it's a perfect film because it has just enough doses of these various elements or points or traits of the crime film genre, the gangster film genre, while being something fresh and being something innovative and new, while also paying tribute to all these wonderful, say, traditions, if you will, of this type of crime, drama, cinema, entertainment. So it's doing many things at once, but it's also doing it in a way that is not showing off in any way. It is a very, it has a quiet tone to it. It has a sublimely contemplative tone to it. It almost has this maybe indirect, or it could have a type of quietly nihilistic, yet maybe realistic philosophical tone about it as well, while at the same time being a showcase for these wonderful performances, again, at the center of which being the great iconic performance by the great iconic Robert Mitchum, as well as being a film that is a sublime and brilliant example of the gangster film genre from the 1970s. So this is The Friends of Eddie Coyle. We're talking about a figure, Eddie Coyle, who is in the sort of lower rungs of the criminal underworld, organized crime life in Boston. And so there is that particular story, and he is, or he could be said to be somewhat down and out, or in certain series of dire straits involving the struggles that he's having in terms of his past crime life, the current situation involving what he's trying to do with his family, and also the threats that he is facing in terms of law enforcement that is hot on his tail, and what it is he thinks he needs to do in order to avoid what could be facing him in terms of law enforcement penalties and the like, and jail time and the like, or the potential or threat of jail time. So there's a lot at stake in terms of his particular plot related predicament or set of predicaments, while at the same time there are a number of other wheels in motion in the film, one involving a series of bank robberies in the area, involving a highly trained and highly skilled crew of bank robbers and criminals. And related to this is their interactions with certain facets of the criminal underworld in this particular area, or Boston area, that involves trying to get firearms, that involves trying to get certain levels of tracing, that also involves gun running, and also involves certain level of protection or non-protection. And embedded or embroiled in this particular set of stories, another wheel that is in motion, as it were, is the law enforcement, or the police enforcement, or the federal agent, the federal agency enforcement aspect of this, and that is to do with the direct nature of the investigation or investigations that are targeting each of these various facets of the criminal underworld that we see ongoing as the film progresses, including the story of Eddie Coyle, the Robert Mitchum character, and also too the idea of loyalty and betrayal that is integral to this idea of the law enforcement investigation, because there's also embedded in this particular set of storylines the idea of the informant, someone from within who is giving details, who is leaking information to people in law enforcement. And so that leads to potential elements of surprise, of betrayal, of the idea of who can you trust. People that we think we can trust end up not being trustworthy at all, at least in the context of this world of crime and world world not just of petty crime, but also of, or maybe sort of relatively minor crimes, but also some very significant and serious crimes indeed. And so, all in all, we have a multi-leveled story that is about a type of pursuit of justice in a certain manner of speaking, that involves trying to rely on the selfish instincts of human nature, that are of people that are caught in extraordinary and high pressured situations where it's either caught or be caught, as it were. And when one is faced with this type of pressure, what one will do in order to either succumb or not succumb. And that leads to examinations within the context of the human drama of the story, The Friends of Eddie Coyle, to ideas or considerations of loyalty on the one hand, but also betrayal on the other. And also there's the idea of the passage of time. There's also the idea of age. There's also the idea of a sense of feeling down and out and feeling hopelessness. And is there hope? Is there light at the end of the tunnel when all there is around you, the present, is nothing but a seemingly endless sense of hopelessness? And so that brings me to the way in which this film is it's a powerhouse of a film. It is thoroughly entertaining. It is capturing a sense of the melancholy and the feeling of, as I say, feeling down and out, feeling just beaten up by the world. And I think that sense is given so much voice and so much reality and vulnerability and passion from the performances that are being had here, that are being portrayed here in such a really great and brilliant way. So I mentioned, for instance, Alex Rocco, who has one of the key wheels, as it were, of this film that I mentioned very briefly in the earlier part of this video. By the way, we might see a film later on in this 31 Days series that features the great Alex Rocco, but I will leave that for a discussion for a later day. But for now, he is in this film, and he is so memorable in the roles that or the role that he inhabits here, and the plot so crucial to the way this film envelops overall. And then we have Richard Jordan too. One of the key elements, as mentioned earlier, was that of the interaction between the criminal element and the enforcement element. And so his presence and his performance and his cinema appearance, as it were, is really quite vital to showing not just the integrity of this line between law enforcement and the criminal element, but also the type of maybe irony and also the hypocrisy, perhaps, that might be seen to be inherently part of that, at least in terms of what we see potentially as we progress through this film. And that brings us to another stellar performance, Peter Boyle. Peter Boyle here gives uh, it's so it's really a sight to behold what Peter Boyle is able to do with his incredible character. Is It's nothing short of genius. He is doing things here that are utterly genius, and his interactions with the world, his lived-in feel, as well as the type of intelligence that he is showing, and that that he has within him, and how he's trying to, in his own way, make sense of these various variables that are quite dangerous and potentially deadly to someone or people that are in positions like his character is. So, for those and other reasons, and his performance, Peter Boyle's performance here it's amazing, absolutely amazing. And he is, of course, his character is such an important character. The character of Dylan is such an important character to the person who could be said to be the main character of this film, played by Robert Mitchum, and that is, of course, Eddie Coyle. Eddie Coyle, as played by Robert Mitchum, is in many ways, or perhaps it is understandably, one of the highlights, if not the highlight, of this film. Eddie Coyle is, it's in many ways a type he is a very almost anonymous figure. He may be almost a type of nobody sort of figure, a type of loser figure, if you will. In the hands of Robert Mitchum, this performance is brought to great heights of human dignity and emotion, while at the same time unearthing the almost epic nature of that down and out, trodden nature to his loser status, as it were. And he never loses sight of that sense of quiet dignity, that sense of a real being in touch with what makes human nature, a type of soft, almost delicate sense of vulnerability that is also wrapped in that iconic package of Robert Mitchum and his face and his demeanor and his body language that is so alluring in terms of the iconic Hollywood star status that it automatically brings with it. At the same time, when he uses that to great effect, it can come crashing down, tumbling down to almost tragic effect. And it's done on purpose. It's done on purpose in a way to make us further empathize and also sympathize with the character and the character's plights and what it is that they are indeed going through, what is he is indeed going through, the psychological stresses of the situation, the feelings of hopelessness, and the utter need to climb out of the hole that he is in. This use of his iconic status to further lift and further give dignity to the character, while at the same time using it in such a precise manner to almost destroy what it is that he is creating before our very eyes. This is a performance that is magnificent. It is on the one hand, it is a performance that deconstructs while at the same time constructs. It is a performance that is relying on iconic status of the star player that is at the heart of this, undeniably. On the one hand, it calls attention to itself in this brilliant way, while at the same time being so quiet and anonymous. This type of balancing act is, I would suggest, it's impossible in the hands of anyone except one who is a genius. And that genius here is Robert Mitchum. I cannot stress enough just how brilliant this performance is. There have been many people, many great critics and scholars and followers of this film who have been able to express this point with so much more care and so much more effectiveness than I am able to do in the words that I'm choosing here in this particular video. But be that as it may, I join that chorus of fans of this film and fans of Robert Mitchum who look at this as being a dynamite performance. It is a film that feels so fresh and so real, while at the same time being so modest and so quiet and so subtle. And it is in that twilight mix of balance, the balancing act between these seemingly disparate sensibilities, in that twilight area where things overlap. That is where we have the brilliance and genius unfold before our very eyes. That is where we have the great drama and suspense and tragedy that also gives way to human touches, slight maybe warmth, comic touches as it were, also giving rise to a sense of the gangster film, the criminal underworld element, and the law enforcement officers that are chasing them down, trying to catch them up. So this idea of cops and criminals at work in the Boston area. In this twilight mix of balancing sensibilities, we have emerging here at the center of which being the great performance by Robert Mitchum. We have emerging from this brilliant sense of twilight cinematic magic, that film which is The Friends of Eddie Coyle. Okay, my friends, so that's it for now in terms of the day one of the 31 days. I hope to see you sometime very soon during the progress of the 31 days going forward. And if, as I say, if my selections disappoint, I sincerely apologize. It is in no way my intention to want to disappoint anyone. This is just hopefully just another opportunity to be able to speak with you, my dear friends, about this thing, this wonderful thing that I think is that we all love and we have a passion for, and that thing is cinema. And one of the great examples of this thing which we love, which is called cinema, is this film, which is The Friends of Eddie Coyle. So with that, my friends, I hope this video finds you well, and until we meet again, please be happy and healthy and well, And please keep on watching a lot of great, great movies. Thank you so much, as always, for your time. I very, very much appreciate it. Stay strong, stay safe, and cheers.